Hi guys, I have lost my lapel mic, so this video is going to be a little bit different. I did want to update you on something that I'm working on. This is a 250 Wien supercharger on the Boogeyman intake. And as a lot of you guys know, I'm actually making these plates. I'm at Cadco programming to make different plates for that intake so that you can do other things. Now I realize that the 250, the 174 that I've run before is obsolete and not available new, but there are a lot of them out there. And this would give you an option to run something else. And the 250 was used quite a bit in Marine, so there's actually quite a few of them out there. Um, in the setup here, I'm using the Cadco pulley down here that was meant for the centrifugal supercharger. Now I have moved it out. At the present moment it's got a 1-inch spacer, though I don't think it needs to be quite that much. Um, the centrifugal supercharger uses the center pulley in order to run the supercharger. In this case, I'm using the outside pulley to run the supercharger and the other two for the accessories. Now, this particular setup with the alternator and the power steering and all that is a setup that I started a while back, and I did a thread in our group about dual belt, dual flat belt, which is basically what this is. The belts run the kind of the standard way, but they're 6-rib flat belts as opposed to being V belts. Now, in this design, I was trying to push it all as far back as I could in order to maximize the room in front. But of course, on my car here, you can see I've got lots of room, so I don't really need to worry about it. And that also meant that I had to go to a small alternator case and to get it to be in front of the head and still line up. Now, if I push the drive assembly forward a bit, I can go to a more standard alternator, maybe even on the factory bracket, which I might mock up later, and see if I can line up the belts on a factory bracket setup and make it work. So the basic idea on this is to use what already exists. Because Wiend is gone, the standard drive that's on the front of the nose here, that is a 10-inch drive, and that's pretty standard. And I'm trying to make that work. And what I'll probably do, if you can see, I don't know if you can see in the picture, the belt's not exactly straight, it's actually coming forward just a bit. So the supercharger actually needs to go back. And I'd already moved it to the very back of the plate, so I think I'm going to actually have to hang the last couple of mounting bolts off of the back of the intake and see if I can't move it back another inch, inch and a quarter in order to make it work. That should allow me to push the Cadco pulley back and not have to be quite out so far. Like I said, I may line some of that up with the factory stuff. Now, if you look at that thread that I ran on building this, I'm actually running a Gen 2 power steering pump, which I already have hooked up to the car. I'm trying to make sure there's enough clearance for an HEI. This particular intake has been shortened. This has been cut down. I am going to start cutting down some of the intakes, so if you go to order one, you can ask for one that's shorter than the regular height. And it takes about 3/4 of an inch or so off of the top, which can help lower the whole assembly down. And like I said, I was making sure that still cleared the HEI, though you could run a smaller distributor if you had the drive in the way. I'm also going to make this plate so that it fits multiple superchargers. Basically, it's going to be a lot of the B&M Wiend antique superchargers. Now, there are some other footprints, but I'm doing the B&M style with the bolt pattern, the 4 bolts. Now, this plate should be able to take the 250 supercharger, the mega charger from B&M, and the 174 or 177 blower from B&M. All 3 of them should fit the same plate. And that should allow you to play around and do some other stuff. Now, I can make some of these plates and other things, but I really need to have either a really good drawing or the actual supercharger in hand, and we can't buy every supercharger out there. So you have an option. One other thing I can do if you need a plate for something different other than this um, is I can sell you a blank plate. I can just drill the holes that are meant to go into the intake and leave the rest of it blank so that you can figure out where the supercharger is going to sit and you can do those holes yourself. And that'll at least minimize some of the work required at your end and let you put the drive where you want it. Now, when I ran this before and ran the 174, I had 7 pounds of boost. This 250 ought to give me plenty of boost. The pulley I ran before was a B&M, and I'm going to stop talking here in a minute and just show you a couple of parts. Some of the parts I'm going to show you are how I extended the original pulley if you don't want to do the Cadco pulley, and the adapter plate that I used on the intake, which I am kind of thinking about maybe making those two at some point, because that does lower the whole assembly down a little bit. But I don't know how important it is because, like I said, these are obsolete superchargers. They are no longer made, and so you're going to have to find something used out there in order to make it work. So this might be a little bit of a futile thing, but I also would kind of like to see one run on it. So let me stop talking for a minute and I'll show you the adapters and how I hooked it up without using the Cadco pulley. Though I think the Cadco pulley will really make it easier to hook up. I know it's an expensive pulley, and you also have to worry about flat belt drive for the rest of the accessories. So maybe it isn't easier, but you know, in my case, it's certainly going to work out here. Um, I'm also thinking about machining some different tops for these blowers, different carburetor tops, so that we'll have some of that available if you're having trouble finding some of the parts. Now, I'm not going to get into building whole superchargers or doing all that. I'm just trying to do some of the accessories to make it maybe a little easier for you to get this done on your own. If you want a fully operational, kit, you've got two options in supercharging with the Cadillac. One is the BDS 671 blower kit, and I am going to work on a plate, so you can just buy a plate if you can find a 671 on your own. 871, 1071, they're all the same bolt pattern. Or you can do the centrifugal that Courtney worked out that bolts up to the front of the motor and everything works. He's got all the brackets, all the stuff. It's a complete kit. So there are some things out there if you just want to buy something to hook up. This is more about kind of the do-it-yourselfer rather than a complete kit ready to go, because like I said, Wien's gone, so it's not like I can get parts and make it happen as a kit. This is just kind of some parts and some fussing around because I'm already busy making plates. So I kind of thought maybe I ought to sort this out just so that option is available for this intake if you want it. Now, most of these plates I'm cutting on demand. They're not going to be in stock at Cadco. You need to call up, kind of tell us what you're looking for. I'm working on dual Holley, dual Quadrajet, triple Edelbrock. We might even look at doing like Webers, 4 or 5 Webers on it, 2-barrel Webers on it. 6-pack, of course, I'd like to do at some point, but I need to get some carbs for that one. And then the supercharger stuff. Now, like I said, let me show you some of the other stuff, and then we'll call this video done. I don't want it to be too long. I will try and speak up a little bit, but since I don't have the lapel mic, some of what I'm saying when I'm a little farther away from the camera may be hard to hear. So I'll do my best and we'll see how it goes. So hang on just a second. When I did the 174, I used a adapter plate that B&M made. And it bolted to the carbureted intake, It took the angle out of the intake, and it allowed the supercharger to be bolted on top. It was used in a Pontiac kit is how I got it. And I tried my best to find more of these, and they are just not out there. B&M must not have made a lot of them because I can't find any at all. I've looked for years. So I may take this one and see if maybe I can make a billet duplicate or a version of this that would let you run some of the smaller superchargers right on the stock intake. But we'll look into that. That's something else that I can work on. But that's how I ran it before on just a stock intake. Now, on the stock, I was running the late model pulley because I needed the alternator out, and I was running the B&M pulley. Now, that's a Chevy pulley with an adapter on it. Basically, I made an adapter to go from Cadillac to Chevrolet, and then just bolted up the B&M pulley so that it could drive the little supercharger. And that worked just fine. I ran it for years. Another thing you can do, this is a 16 rib supercharger pulley. Now, the Cadillac hub actually has a 2-inch index, which is standard supercharger. And the bolt pattern will actually go on the hub. Now, if you need a hub, Cadillac does have, or Cadco does have a steel billet hub that they have made. Now, it doesn't have this bolt pattern. It's got the Cadillac bolt pattern on it. But it wouldn't be too hard for you to add this bolt pattern on it and have a steel hub instead of a cast hub in order to do a supercharger of some sort. That would ensure that you don't accidentally break the hub, because remember, these are going to pull 150, 200 horsepower in order to run. So you got a lot of power going through the pulley. All right. I don't know if you heard that part or not. I'll have to go back in the video and see. But that's my basic update. And I wish you well in all your projects. And I'm going to keep plugging away at seeing if I can make this work out so that it's easy for maybe somebody else other than me to do. And I hope you're having fun. Talk to you later. Bye.